Welcome to this demo of the Application Interconnect, a feature of the Edge Manageability Framework version 3.1. Before we get started with the demo, I wanted to show a quick picture of what the feature is. Down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll see three boxes which are edge clusters. We have divided them into a hub edge cluster, which is running a server application, and then one or more spoke edge clusters, which are running client applications. The server hosts an endpoint, depicted in yellow, and the client hosts a client, depicted in yellow as well. And the goal is for the client application's client to be able to connect to the server application's endpoint to retrieve some data from it. Scenarios where this might be useful in the real world would be something like AI at the edge, where you might have one edge site that is doing an AI training application, and then multiple edge sites that are doing AI inference applications, and the inference needs to be able to reach out to the training application to fetch an updated model. That is kind of the scenario where we envision this being used. Now we have leveraged a component called Scupper that does this, and Scupper runs a local router on each edge cluster, and it will create the MTLS secured tunnel between the edge clusters for you. So your client application need not be aware that it is accessing a remote server or that it is going over a secured connection. When Scupper advertises the server, it will create a local service in the Kubernetes Edge cluster on the clients that makes it appear as if the server is local to the client. So you can write client-server applications completely agnostic of this edge connectivity. So Skupper provides the L7 network that connects these sites, but inside of the Edge orchestrator's central orchestrator up at the top, you have the Application Interconnect operator, and it is responsible for automatically reaching out to Skupper as necessary to connect the edge sites that are a part of the application. And you will see when we do the demo exactly how that works. Okay, let's go ahead and start our interconnect demo. So I'm going to go in here and go into deployment packages, extensions. The first thing I need to do is install a load balancer, and that is because for the hub or the server edge site that is going to be part of our interconnect, we need to have a load balancer for it. That's a requirement of the Scupper service that we're using. So I will select the load balancer package. I'll go up here, I'll hit deploy, and I will hit the default configuration. I'll hit next, and then I need to go in here, and we need to fill out a couple of parameters. So one thing you need to know when setting up a load balancer is the IP addresses that you're going to expose. So I'll go in here and I'll put those. This it happens to be a set of subnets that I am familiar with. Here on my network, I know that subnet is available. We also need to enable these L2 advertisements. I will change this to true. And then I also need to set the address where those advertisements will go out on. So I will set that to this particular Ethernet address. And then I can click next. I'm going to do a manual deployment. I only want one load balancer, and I know I want it to go to my JF3 node here. That's the node I'm going to be using for my hub or my server. So we'll hit that JF3. It's going to take a few moments for the load balancer to deploy, but while we're doing that, I can deploy the second extension that I need, which is going to be the Scupper extension. So Scupper is the actual service that will run on the edge and will create the L7 interconnect. So I'm going to select the Scupper service. I will go up here again. I will hit deploy. We will do the default configuration. I'll hit next. I'll hit next again. I'm also going to do a manual, but this time I'm going to deploy this to both the clients and the servers. So I will select the node that I was going to pick as the server, which is this one. And I'm going to set this other node down here up as a client, so I will select this one as well. So we'll do Scupper to both of those. I'll hit deploy, and then we will see our load balancer here is working through some issues while deploying. This will eventually resolve itself. It'll go to 1 of 1. Okay, we can see that our load balancer has completed deploying here, and we can also see that our Scupper has completed deploying to both nodes. At this point, we need to do something called creating a network. The network is used to bind all of the instances that we'll be using the interconnect together. So we want a network that we can attach to the sample applications that we're going to run on the client and on the server. You cannot create networks with the graphical user interface at this time, but you can create it with our command line interface. So I'll switch over to the CLI, and it's just a simple command as orch CLI create network, and then we give it a name like my network. And it should be created. We can also go in here and we can do list networks, and we can see there is our network. It is an application mesh. It's ready to go. Let me go back to the graphical user interface. Okay, next let's deploy a sample client and server application. So we have two of those that come from the Skupper website. These are the Skupper backend and the Skupper front end. These are both sample applications. The backend runs a simple server that listens for incoming connections. It takes the message, it appends a little bit to the message, and it sends it back to the client. The client operates a graphical front end with a button that lets you send a message to the server. So by deploying the both of these, we will be able to test from two different edge sites whether they can talk to one another. So first let's do the back end. We will hit deploy. I'm going to select the only profile that's there. I'll hit next. There's no options to change. Next I have to select an interconnect. This screen only appears in the orchestrator if you have created one or more network. We created a network called My Network, so I'm going to select that. When I do that, it brings this up and gives me the option to select which services I want to expose. Exposing a service will make it available to other clients on the network. And we want to expose the Skupper backend service, so I will select that. I'm going to do a manual deployment. We'll call this Skupper sample backend JF3 because we're going to put it on the JF3 node. I'll select that. I'll hit next and deploy. Now let's deploy the front end. So I'm going to go in here. I'll select this. We'll go here. We'll hit deploy. Select the only profile that is available. We'll hit next. There's no options. We need to put it on the same network that we put the server on. So if you had multiple networks, you'd want to select the same one. And we get the same option about whether or not we want to expose services to that network. Now, we do not need to expose the Skupper front-end service. That is just a web UI that we will be interacting with ourselves to do the demo. So we don't need to click this Expose Service checkbox. I will hit Next. We'll do Manual. Skupper Sample Front-End JFS4. And we'll put it on this JFS4 node down here. I'll hit Next. I'll hit Deploy. And we can see our back end has finished deploying, and our front end is just now starting to deploy. So we'll give that a few moments to get deployed, and then we will go in and we will try out the front end. Okay, now that the front end is up and running, I'm going to go in here. I'll go into the cluster it's running on, and I'm going to use our service link feature. This is a feature that lets you go into an application that's running at the edge. So when I hover over this port 8080 down here, you see it has a little URL pop up. When I hover over this and I click on this, it will take us into this front end service, which is running on the JFS4 cluster. So I'll hit that. So now we are inside the Skupper sample front end. If I push this hello button, it will announce its name, which is Kinetic Camel. It will send that to the back end, which is running on another edge. Then the back end will reply. So let me hit the say hello button. There we go. So the front end posted this message to the back end. The back end responded with this message. And we can do this multiple times. We can keep hitting this. It's sending a message across that interconnect each time. And this proves that the connection has been successful. Thank you for watching this demo on the Application Interconnect.